In this video, we're going to talk about some strategies around creating self-directed learners. But before we get started with sharing out some strategies, I'd like you to just take a minute, pause the video, and answer this question. What do you predict you will hear from students after the first week of flipping your classroom? And of course, if you've already tried this model, just jot down some things that you might have heard in the first week of flipping your classroom. Okay, pause the video now and then continue once you have a few of these written down. Some of the strategies I have around creating self-directed learners, first of all, make can't mean something else. And I have an acronym here for the word can't, and it's going to cover a couple of little things to help us create self-directed learners or help model what self-directed learners should look like. First of all, the C in can't is choice. If you give a student one choice as far as how to demonstrate competency or how to engage with the content, and they choose not to participate, they've chosen the other 50% of their options, and they are being self-directed. But by giving more choices, let's say you give 4 choices, the percentage of options that is nothing is 20%, and then they have 4 other options, 80% of their options, to choose doing something with the content. The other benefit of that is they have multiple choices to engage with the content, and then as a teacher and as a guide, you can help them decide which choices were right for them, which also helps them become more self-directed, because if they make a choice that really doesn't meet their learning style, you can direct them towards something else the next time around. The A is for accountability. And I don't just mean the accountability of making sure that they watch the videos and practice the practice problems before coming to class and come to class prepared for a flipped lesson. I also am talking about the classroom activity and making sure that you get around the classroom enough so that every 5 minutes or so you're holding every student accountable for something else having been completed or some work getting done in the classroom. And mainly you're looking at making it more difficult to not participate than to participate. And to be honest, those first few weeks until this classroom culture comes around, you're probably just going to feel like a taskmaster and not be engaging in the content as much as you will after you've changed that culture a little bit in your classroom. The N is for no excuses. Now, when I had you pause the video earlier, you probably mentioned some of the things that fall into this category, like the internet was slow last night, or I couldn't get to a computer because I was on the bus going to a football game, or the dog ate my flash drive. Whatever there is, having these excuses can't be allowed, because you're going to help problem solve that for the student, but really those are still the student's problems, and they need to be, well, accountable for those problems. And as a teacher, your role is to help them problem solve those and not allow any excuses. And then finally, 3 before me. If you have 60 minutes and 30 students in a class, that means you only really have 2 minutes to give feedback to every student. And if your goal is to try and have a conversation with every student every day, then the questions that they bring to you should be higher level questions. And the way that you can have this happen is by having them go to 3 other resources when they have a question before bringing that to you. Having them go to the video, having them go to their textbook, having them go to peers or doing web searches. Those will help them answer those lower level questions and be less dependent on you for content. That way, the time that you spend with them having those conversations are more about those higher level questions and pushing them to really explore the content on their own. Another strategy is redirecting I don't get it. Now, you might have some pushback from students when they go home, they watch the video one time, and then they come to class and say, you know, I watched the video, I didn't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. When a student comes in with the I don't get it answer, basically what they're doing is they're volleying the ball back to you. I don't get it, ball's in your court now, teach. And really what you have to do with that is volley it right back to them. Well, I can't help you if that's the only answer you have. So by redirecting them, their homework then changes. So after you watch the video, if you don't get it, that's okay. You have to explain what you're unsure of and ask some specific questions to help me as the teacher help you understand what we're talking about. define what it is that you don't get. And in some cases, this may go back all the way to the learning objective in the video. You stated the learning objective, and immediately they were lost. So having them define the pieces, or define the vocabulary maybe, that they don't get, so that you can help them with that. Also, redirecting them to be okay with struggling and getting it wrong. It's okay to watch the video twice, not get it, but still attempt it and have the wrong answer, because we can learn from that during our activities during class. But the main point here is that as a teacher, you can't help the student if they're not trying. If they're not participating in the conversation about the content, if they're not participating in it, there's not really anything that you can do aside from spending a lot of time questioning to dig out of them what it is that they don't get, which is time you really don't have in the class, especially if you're trying to meet every student's need every day. And just explaining that to them, that your job is to help them, and it's hard for you to help them if they're not at least trying to explain what it is that they need help with. Now, in the previous slides, I've been kind of heavy-handed with the students, saying that, okay, well, self-directed learners, these are your problems and your issues, and I'll help you solve them, but you're on your own. I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm not taking any excuses. But simultaneously, what we need to do here is decrease the fear of failure. Yes, we have some expectations of the students, but also we really need to decrease that fear of being wrong, because getting things wrong and misunderstanding things is part of the messy experience of learning. And I think that by trying to explain that that's all part of what we're doing here, that everybody makes mistakes, and it's okay. If you can't make mistakes in school, where else can you make them? So another way to decrease that fear of failure is to have the students set and monitor their own goals. By setting and monitoring their own goals, first of all, they have a little bit more control, and they can also predict where it is they should be going. So a sense of control and a sense of predictability are two things that can help fight anxiety every time. So giving the students a sense of control and a sense that they can predict where they're going and where they're moving and what's next will help them become self-directed and decrease their anxiety around it. And then the next thing is be as flexible as possible with student evidence. As the teachers, we're the ones that usually design the end product. We design the test. So of course we hear, well, tell me what's going to be on the test, and that's what I'm going to study for. Because we are now in control of the evidence. The more we can let students be in control of some of that evidence, and I say some of the evidence because being as flexible as possible, you still have to evaluate this evidence, and given that you might have 150, 200 students, it makes it very difficult to be totally flexible as far as their evidence, creating rubrics all the time and trying to evaluate 15 different pieces, 15 different styles of evidence for the same learning objective might be just a little too overwhelming. But by being able to provide some of their own evidence, the end goal then changes from being a teacher-centered piece of evidence to more of a student-created piece of evidence, thus engaging them throughout the learning process.